Welcome back to another edition of the KARE 11 Sports Plus show. I'm Julia Daniels, but this is not Reggie Wilson.
No,
today.
I'm filling in for the honorable, the legendary Reggie Wilson, and I could not be more excited. My name is Nasser Kelvy, and we're here to talk sports.
All right, well, thanks for introducing yourself.
Yeah, anytime I get to say Reggie's name, I just get really excited.
This is what co-hosting is all about, people.
That's my guy. I'd go as far as to say I'm the number one Reggie Wilson fan.
I could see that.
In the cities,
I could see that.
Yeah, Team Reggie
You
Wilson.
might have some competition there, but we got to talk about, there's some other sports that were happening the past 24 hours, something.
Wolves back.
And in the future, 24 to 48 hours, some stuff's happening. We got to talk about this Timberwolves Game 2 versus the Lakers, and obviously the Wild's huge win over Vegas last night. Both Game 2s last night. Very, very busy time for Twin Cities sports.
Yes.
We're also going to talk about the NFL draft because, that's also tomorrow. So plenty of things to get to. Of course, Nasser, it's your thing, the Wolves. We have to talk about
The Wolves
this
are
game.
coming back. All right, first and foremost, the Wolves are just fine. I don't buy into I don't buy into any of the panic, any of the concern. The Wolves are just fine. The fact that they can have some of their best shooters, some of the top shooters in the league, arguably, with Donte DiVincenzo, miss everything all night long, yet they only lose by 9 in LA to the Lakers. The Wolves are just fine.
Just fine. And you know what? Those shots, they'll go down.
They will absolutely go down.
It's more about opportunity in basketball.
Yes.
Statistics say.
And to get that opportunity, you cannot be picking up a bunch of meaningless fouls.
Yeah, foul trouble early in the second quarter is not ideal.
You got to let the players play the game.
Yeah, Dante, Julius both had 3 fouls before the half, and Nas had 2.
You can't get into rhythm like that.
Before the half. Yeah, I think things sort of snowballed for the Lakers. I will say, not for the Lakers, for the Wolves. I will say I think the Lakers maybe were a little bit surprised at the physicality of Game 1, and so they stepped it up. This is the most physical NBA that we've ever seen before, and I think that the Lakers were kind of in for a rude awakening when it came to Game 1. Maybe they figured that out a little bit headed into Game 2 because they definitely brought a little bit more heat.
Absolutely. And listen, we all want to see physical basketball. It's the playoffs. Let them play the game. But what does it say about the game that Chris Finch is calling back-to-back challenges and they're both getting overturned? At some point, the ref has to make the right call.
Yeah.
At some point. I mean, you can't slow down the game. You can't stop it every single time because you're giving the other team the benefit of the doubt. You just can't play the game like that.
Walk our audience through these challenges.
Completely. I mean, these are the most simple things that are happening in the game. And the fact that, I mean, God, it was the first one. Were they both on Randall? I remember the first one was on Randall, I believe. That would have been his 4th.
Yeah.
And then I think the next one might have also been on Randall.
It was also on
I think
him,
they're both on Randall. And obviously he's the one who's setting the tone for the Wolves. I mean, they're trying to get him out of there. And listen, it's not going to work. But Finch should not have to use his challenges back-to-back in the third quarter. They shouldn't need to do that. This should be easy. I mean, the ref should be making the right call at least 50% of the time. You know what I mean? Is that too much to ask for? The fact that back-to-back they're making the wrong call, that's too much for me.
Yeah,
I can't stand that.
That is, that's their job. So
you're professionals. You folks are professionals.
Yeah, something that they should get figured out. I will say this is like a common complaint when people play the Lakers and LeBron James. And that's something that unfortunately teams have to accept a little bit is the officiating's going to be a little bit biased.
That's true, and you can't.
I hate that it's like. Do I agree that it should be this way? No, of course not. But it's a reality of the situation. And then the Wolves still only lose by 9 points.
And that's that's exactly what I was going to say. The fact that you get outscored by 20 something in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And the fact that you only lose by 9 points, I think you got to set the tone early. Now, if you've watched the Wolves this year, you know that's not what they do.
Yeah.
They're not good at setting the tone early. They love to lose huge amounts of momentum in the first quarter and then storm back in the second or third quarter. It's not going to be the same in the playoffs. Obviously, you need to set the tone. You need to be better. So not to make any excuses for them, it was not a great effort in the first quarter. But then, you watch the game, and I don't know. This is not going to happen again. Mike Conley, Donte DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker combined to go 0 of 7 from 3.
Yeah, 20% from 3 from the entire squad.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen again. And it jumps to 1 of 10. That jumps to 10% if you add Naz Reid into the mix. And these are guys who are going to knock down their shots. Specifically, I'm looking at Donte DiVincenzo to have a big game in Game 3.
I will say, none of the guys were specifically, is that the right word that I'm looking for? particularly downtrodden post game, because I think they have the same sentiment that you do. In that, I mean, even Ant said, John Krasinski from The Athletic asked him, you know, like, did you like the way that you guys bounced back? And he said, yeah, I liked the way that we responded. It was too late, but I did like the way that we responded in the third quarter, and we were able to cut that lead down. He said obviously he was disappointed that they cut it down to 11 and then they made some more mistakes and kind of screwed themselves in a sense. But that is what we talked so long about what is the character of this Wolves team. And it is getting yourself into a tight situation and then getting yourself out of it. Yeah. They're so good at that. It's like a sneaky teenage boy who's able to like get himself into trouble and then work his way out of it. Yeah. And which is funny, you know, considering the personality Anthony Edwards has too. But I think that it says something about the team. Think
about your wallet sometimes, and $50K is not nothing.
Right. And
$50K is not nothing, bro. Yeah. Watch your wallet. Donate that money. Do something else with it. Don't give it to Adam Silver. Yeah. He doesn't need $50,000. Please.
He was careful post game about his words, I will say.
Yeah.
But another thing too is Austin Reeves' game was better.
Yeah.
You know, he got things together. Luka did what Luka does. But you and I were talking earlier, and something has to change when it comes to Rudy's game.
Rudy Gobert, let me just say one thing. Rudy Gobert is a certified Hall of Famer. Rudy Gobert is arguably the greatest defensive player to ever touch the hardwood. That's how good he is defensively. But in this series, in order for the Wolves to move on, Rudy Gobert, future Hall of Famer, you need to pick it up offensively. You need to dominate. They have nobody who can even come close to stopping you. We've seen him dominate offensively just the last game of the season.
Yeah.
We saw him put up 35 points. This guy is not stopping you. Are you kidding me? Jackson Hayes? You're afraid of Jackson Hayes? Get the ball, take it to the cup, dunk on these guys. They cannot stop you, Rudy Gobert. Please. I just have to get that off my chest.
And I will say, too, this is also, this is LeBron James we're talking about. This is Luka Doncic. You beat them so bad in game one. The expectation is that they're going to come out in game two and have a different game plan and be able to fix and move on and play the game that they had last night. I will say, I still don't believe that the Lakers are a better team than the Wolves. They're not as big, they're not as deep, they don't have as many weapons. Nope. But I think essentially what it came down to was just the shots not going down at the end of the day. And like you talked about, the likelihood that this will happen again is low.
Zero.
It's low. It's not. I'm not going to say zero.
It's zero.
I'm glad that you have that confidence, but this is also a long series. And
Naz Reid, 20-point game loading. Dante DiVincenzo, 20-point game loading. Game 3, watch those two guys. They're about to go crazy.
I could see that too, especially Dante. I just think about Naz Reid in the postseason last year, and it makes you wonder a little bit. You know, he keeps you on the edge of your seat a little bit. Yeah, but Dante is known for, obviously his offensive abilities. He's a guard, but you have to wonder what the conversations are going to be over these next, 48 hours? The 48 hours they have in between games. And also, Wolves are going to be at home for Game 3, which is obviously an advantage. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that Game 3 matchup. We'll also hear from Anthony Edwards. And we're going to start getting into some wild talk, too, when we come back. Welcome back to KARE 11 Sports Plus. We are still talking about the Wolves. Woof. You can't win them all. Yeah. Ooh, maybe whimpering a little bit.
No, they're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine.
That's what Nasser was telling the audience in our last.
They are going to be just fine. And they are actually, in fact, still going to win the championship this year. Just so we're clear, they are winning the championship this year. Still, I'm glad. Honestly, I'm happy they lost Game 2. Complete honesty. I'm happy they lost
time
game
for a
2.
reality check.
Exactly. They needed to lose game 2. This is not like last year where they just breeze right through the Phoenix Suns, and then suddenly when they start losing to the Denver Nuggets, it's scary. We think they're immediately going to lose the entire series because of that. I'm happy they lost game 2. I don't think they're going to lose game 3. I don't think they're going to lose game 4. I think the Wolves take this one in 6.
Ooh, okay.
Wolves in 6.
That is a spicy thought. I will say, here's the thing. I have come to know, many of you guys know I'm not from Minnesota, but obviously I've been covering Minnesota sports for a few years now, and I've picked up on something about these fans. And the thing is, there's no comfortable lead, but there's also no lost hope, you know?
Yeah.
So yesterday we're watching this game. No one's lost hope, even with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You're down by double digits still. You're trailing.
We know what this team is capable of. We know what they can do.
They know what it's capable of. It was like the polar opposite of a situation for game 1 where you could have a 24-point lead in the fourth quarter and Minnesota fans say, not just yet. We're not celebrating yet. And that's why I find it interesting, Nasir, that you come in with so much confidence saying these things, because I feel like it's so hard to find a Minnesota sports follower that will just come out and say, we are going to win this championship. We're going to do this. Because I feel like everyone's lost hope, and also they feel like it's a little bit of a curse.
Let me just clear something up right now. I am not a Minnesota fan. I'm not a Minnesota sports follower. I'm a Minnesota sports believer.
It's in his
First
blood.
and foremost, I'm a Minnesota sports believer, and they've given me every reason to believe in them. This Wolves team has it all. They have the defense, they have the offense, they have the shooters, they have the guys in the paint, they have the coaching. They have everything they could possibly need to win a championship. Can they put it all together? Yes. The answer to that is also yes, and you're going to see that on Game 3 on Friday night.
And Anthony Edwards actually talked about that after Game 1 when asked about what this team is, and it's something that I had actually talked to Nickeil Alexander-Walker about and Rudy Gobert about too. They're all on the same page of things didn't start out really well for us, but the fact that we were able to get together, work through it, and move past it, and then succeed says everything about this team. It also says a lot about the depth that this team has. I can't think of another team that has the depth that the Wolves have.
I mean, the Boston Celtics.
Yeah,
I mean, the Boston Celtics is the only answer to that.
Yes.
But they don't have a Naz Reid. There's only one Naz Reid.
That's true. There's only one six-man of the year.
Naz
Yeah.
Reid. There's only one of them. And as long as he's going to be okay, if he's not picking up all these pointless fouls in the game, he's going to dominate. I mean, if you take the ball out of his hands, you give him 3-4 fouls early on in the game, you're kind of dictating the way the entire game is going to go. I don't think that's going to happen in Minnesota. I think, like I said earlier, Naz Reid is going to have at least 25 points in Game 3. I think Jaden McDaniels is going to pick it up. I think Jaden McDaniels is going to have at least 18 points, 10
He's
boards.
going to get back to it. That's something, it's kind of the Wolves' overlooked underdog is Jaden McDaniels because he just figured out his offensive game this season. And now, Game 1, I think the Lakers were a little bit shocked at Jaden McDaniels' offense. But it's, if you actually did your research, maybe you would understand that he's kind of taking control.
He can
when
do
Ant's
it
not
all.
doing it, usually Jaden McDaniels is the one that's doing it, which is interesting because they didn't predict that before the season started.
And he can shoot, he can slash, he can get to the basket. He can do it all. He can do everything you want the second star to do. He can be that guy. I know we've always looked, at least for the Wolves, as long as we've had Ant, we've always looked to Cat to be that second guy.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at Julius Randle to be that second guy. I think the second guy has been there all along, and his name is Jaden McDaniels.
And I think Naz Reid has learned something about Rudy's screens, and he's taken some notes and put them to practice.
Yes, please, Naz
We
Reid.
saw that. Also, after the game, obviously, Game 3 and 4 back here at Target Center. Last night, Anthony Edwards was asked about what has to be different in these upcoming games, particularly Game 3, and here is what he had to say.
Nothing really. I mean, we just can't let them get off to. I will say we just can't let them get off to a fast start. I feel like that's the only thing with this team. They're looking forward to coming out and jumping on you early. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like as long as we hold them to not being down 18 points in the first quarter, we'll be all right.
So they'll be all right if they don't let the Lakers get out to an 18-point lead
Fair enough.
early
That's
in the
fair
first
enough.
quarter. So, that is, I would argue that that's probably a pretty good game plan. Obviously, he's talked a lot about working with Chris Hine, going through film, so we know that's probably what they're up to right now. But we do have to talk about the Wild a little bit.
Yes.
The Wild, wow. It's hard to watch 2 games at one time.
It sure is. It sure is,
keep
and have
up with-
any idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Let me just get to my Wild notes.
Yeah.
Don't mind me.
Now Sarah gets his homework in when
I
he's
take
coming
this
on this
seriously.
show. He does take this seriously. If you guys didn't know, the Minnesota Wild beat the Vegas Golden Knights last night 5-2 in Game 2 of their first round Stanley Cup playoff series. Say that 3 times fast. Don't do it. So obviously this was a different looking Wild than what we were maybe expecting. New line, maybe some more physicality from this Minnesota team headed into this matchup. What were your thoughts?
I think overall, I mean, I'm just going to take this back. This is going to sound a little bit out of pocket initially, but trust me, I'm getting there. I'm going to go a long way around. Aaron Rodgers once said, this is going back about 12, 13 years ago, he said the regular season is where players earn their paychecks and the postseason is where players earn their legacy. And I think that's why you got to mix up the lines. You got to do what you need to do in order to give these players the opportunity to define their legacies. And that's kind of what you're seeing in that game too, is different players stepping up. The lines gets mixed up, and look at the result. It's dynamic. It's fantastic. It's exactly what a Wild fan would want it to be.
Yeah, I will say, and we'll hear from John Hines in a little bit after the break, but is stoic the right word I could use for John Hines? I think something that's interesting is that he doesn't take things too seriously, but he is professional enough to still be the coach. And when he goes, you're never going to hear him, even after their loss in Game 1, you're never going to hear him dog on his on anybody on his team. And he has a lot of faith in his guys. And something that we've also talked about is, I mean, Kirill has two goals last night.
He's him.
Matt Boldy's having a postseason for the history books as well already, and we're already
Game 2.
We're only in Game 2 of
Just
this
finished Game
series,
2,
right?
wrapped up Game 2.
So I do think it's interesting to see how this team has kind of worked out now that they are back to the healthy roster that we've talked about so much, and how they were missing Kirill and Joel Eriksson Ek, obviously, seriously, for the majority of this season. Those guys are coming back, but when we come back, we are going to talk about this new look line that they debuted last night. A little different than what we were expecting, but it really set the tone for the matchup in Vegas. So we'll have that, and we'll hear from John Hines coming up after the break. Welcome back to KARE 11 Sports Plus. Thanks for sticking with us. But if you're new, we've already talked about the Wolves, so you're going to have to rewind a little bit. Right now, we're talking about the Wild taking down Vegas last night, 5-2. What a huge, dominant win for them. We're talking about this new look line that they had.
Yes.
Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, and Nyquist.
Hartman's been hooping. Hartman
Hartman has been hooping. I think
He's
maybe
been hooping a little bit. He's been hooping a little bit.
He was. I mean, he's like really turning it on after he had a little bit of a bumpy regular season as well.
Legacy. His legacy's on the line, and he's waking up.
He's
And he's got to put the right players in at the right time.
Yeah.
People care about their legacy, and Ryan Hartman's one of those guys.
They really set the tone last night. I will say Moose, Marcus Foligno, for those that don't know, that's his nickname. Moose, arguably the most physical player on the team, but he helped set the tone with this new line that they had, and just the physicality of it all and the opportunities that it opened up for scoring. Just, you love to see it.
Absolutely.
Do you expect it in the postseason necessarily? No, but you like to see that it worked.
Yeah, there it is. That's kind of all that matters. I mean, if it works, it's great. It was a great idea. If it doesn't work, wow, what was this guy thinking? Shout out to the Wild, man. Shout out to, I mean, it honestly, it takes a little bit of courage to be able to mix up your lineups in the playoffs. To not ride with the team that was very successful in the regular season, to say, you know what, some things aren't working, we're going to move some things around. And that's the result you get when you're creative and when you're innovative and you're willing to take that risk.
Kirill Kaprizov, if he had been healthy, would have been maybe the front runner for MVP.
Man, can he ball.
And he has 2 goals, 1 assist, and he gets hit in the face twice.
That dime.
Yeah.
That dime, basically 50 feet up the rink. My goodness. My goodness, is it rare to see something that pretty in hockey?
And I mean, well,
For me, hold on, I should specify.
Yeah, no,
there's lots of pretty things happening in hockey. I'm not saying nothing happens that's pretty in hockey.
Everybody's so pretty.
Yeah, that's what hockey players are known for. But man, there's nothing Kirill can't do.
Yeah, I mean, and he took some shots to the face too, but
his team had his back.
He recovered. From, I mean, and he's a tough guy, anyways. I mean, he's the same guy that when he was seriously injured, which, by the way, was a hernia that he had. When he was seriously injured, he wanted to go out there and play, and then eventually they were like, "Nah, dude, you gotta
knock it off.
You gotta knock it off.
You gotta chill out.
Yeah. You can't do all of this. We need you healthy when it comes to the postseason. It seems to be working out well for them.
Yes.
Can they keep it up?
Not only can they need to.
Well, yes. I mean, they have to.
This is about for the Wild specifically, for this franchise, they need to beat Vegas. I think there's some bad blood there, man. I'm still not over the loss. They sent us home a couple years ago. I think this is a pristine opportunity. We got a young leader. We got everybody we need. We're healthy finally, and I think this is it. I think if we don't beat Vegas now, I'd be sad and I'd be worried about the Wild.
Yeah, I think obviously this is something this is the state of hockey, and I think that sometimes that gets overlooked. Oddly enough, probably not by hockey fans, but I mean, we cover high school, we cover the Gophers, everything. But it's about time that the Minnesota Wild get something under their belt here. Also, I will say shout out to this Wild defense last night too. If I'm looking at this correctly, if the numbers are numbering right, Philip Gustafson had 30 saves last night, and the Wild had 30 shots blocked, compared to Vegas had 13 shots blocked.
And Vegas actually started out pretty good on defense too. Is the thing.
They did. Well,
they got worn down really quick.
And Vegas started out really well. They came out swinging with, I think they immediately had 5 shots on goal. Like they were ready to go. Obviously, that wore off pretty quickly. But I just think that I want to be confident in this Wild. In this Wild group.
It's hard, man.
It's hard just because it's still a little bit of an unknown for us, right?
We haven't seen him do it.
Well, I'm just talking about this season in particular when it comes to this roster. Yes, they've had good games, Central Eriksson Ek and Kirill Kaprizov. I mean, Kaprizov is the factor, right? He's changes these games that are happening. But I've yet to see, and I hate to say this, I've yet to see just the consistency that you would so hope for. At the same time, it's the postseason. Yeah. So the point of consistency is kind of past us.
Yeah.
It's basically just a survive and move on.
And it goes back to what you said about the Lions, and that's why you got to mix things up. And whoever's hot, you got to go with the hot hand. And that's kind of seems like what the Wild are doing right now.
Right. And like we were talking about this, Marco Rossi. Maybe some people would view that as a demotion.
You just got to impact the game any way you can.
Yeah.
Whenever you get in the game, you got to impact it, and I think the runway is clear for Marco Rossi to do that. I think sometimes you need that. You need a little bit of a demotion, even though it's not officially a demotion. You need that. You need to maybe lose a little bit of playing time before you can really lock in again.
I think also it was taking advantage of opportunities in this game last night when Vegas did make mistakes. They were able to capitalize on
costly turnover. They had a really costly turnover. Led straight to a goal.
And so it's just taking advantage of those that help out. But I think it's also just, I mean, you were talking about Brock Faber just coming into his own here too. And
go for legend. Go for GOAT, Brock Faber. He's still doing his thing. He continues to be that guy.
Yeah. And also, here's a fun stat for you guys. When the Wild are leading after 2 periods, they have been perfect all season long.
30-0. Is that right?
29-0.
29-0?
Yeah, that was close though. You knew what was going on.
Something like that.
Yeah, so I think maybe that's the consistency that you can look into and maybe have some hope for.
They're like the reverse Wolves.
Yeah.
In that way. They need the strong start, where the Wolves don't necessarily ever have the strong start.
Yeah.
But they come together at the end of the game. The Wild need a strong start, and then they're not giving anything up.
Well, post-game, John Hines was talking about this new look line that he has, but he also talked about a few other things that he thought was working well for his team last night. Take a look.
I think some of the big things is you get in these series and there's going to be pushes and surges either way. I think from a competitive level, we were where we needed to be, but the big part is poise under pressure, playing smart, understanding how to manage those certain things. And I thought we did a fairly good job of that tonight. And they had some strong pushes, and we got some timely saves when we needed them.
Poise under pressure, which I will say, correction, you're right, 30-0. 30-0.
What do you know?
I should trust him a
What-
little bit more
what do
often
you know?
when it comes to these things.
What do you know? She didn't even hesitate when it came to correcting me either. She's
like, no,
I don't
it's
think so. I
29."
think it's 29.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Another thing that I think that we saw last night when it comes to making a decision like that to switch things up is you get to see the depth that this Wild team has too, and that also obviously gives hope to Wild fans. I think they have been downtrodden when it comes to the playoffs. There's not been a ton of really great experiences.
Don't remind me.
And it's yet to be seen, but also now the Wild are back. They're back at home for games 3 and 4. That's tomorrow, 8 p.m. And then on Saturday, 3 p.m. So we are going to be very busy. We're going to be very busy for a while. We'll see how that works out at the X. Coming up, though, guys, there's something happening tomorrow. I don't know if you've heard about it, but the NFL draft. The NFL draft is happening, so we have got to talk about maybe some of our predictions, what we think the Vikings are going to do, what we hope they do.
Yes.
Because they've got to get some bodies on this roster, and they don't have a lot of picks.
No.
So we'll discuss that coming up next. Welcome back to the KARE 11 Sports Plus show. Now Sarah Kelby, Julia
Yes.
Daniels, if you've been
Yes.
with us. We've already been through Wolves Wild.
Yes.
But there's a lot going on in the Twin Cities sports world.
Yes.
Reggie Wilson and JT Messenger, our photog, are actually on their way to Green Bay as we speak
Legendary duo.
for the NFL draft.
Yes.
Happening tomorrow. Can you believe it? The Vikings don't have a lot to work with.
No, they
right
do
now.
not.
They
do not.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And that's it.
They have 4 picks, and the first one is at 24. So tomorrow we find out if Reggie and JT made the trek to Green Bay, all for nothing or not.
And I hate to say it because I really like both those guys, and I hope they're not wasting their time, but I do hope that the Minnesota Vikings are going to trade down from that pick.
Yeah.
Because 4 picks is not enough. And don't get me wrong, I think they have a great roster. I think they have talent all over the place. I think they got the weapons. They've been building up the trenches. But they don't have a lot of youth in those trenches.
They don't.
And they could definitely use something like that.
That's something that I've been talking about. Listen, I'm a Bama girl. For those that don't know, I went to the University of Alabama.
Here we go.
And I am ride
Here
or
we
die.
go. Oh my
Tyler
God.
Booker is my draft crush. I think Tyler Booker would be a phenomenal fit to come in. He's so versatile. He could play anywhere on the line.
Talk about it.
And talk about it. And I just think like
Where did he go to school?
He Roll Tide. He went to Alabama.
Oh, wow. I wonder why we're talking about him.
Of course. But I also think he's a great guard, too. I think that this is something, if they could bring in somebody that they could train up to be on a level of Chris Sterisaw,
Wow.
then I mean, because they really did
bar.
well. I mean,
Yeah.
out of that draft class, Chris Sterisaw is like the main one that they did anything with. And it is paying off, obviously.
True.
But they do, I think that they need some youth on the line. And the line doesn't have the cleanest bill of health.
Correct.
When it comes down to it. But I also think so the main needs that I think about when I think about the Vikings are trenches. So that could be offensively, defensively.
Sure.
They could use a D tackle for sure. Obviously, they could use offensive linemen. Cornerback.
Isaiah Rodgers is there. Don't even worry about cornerback. That's why we
Cornerback.
signed Isaiah Rodgers, folks. Wait for this guy to start balling. You're
Yes.
going to be shocked.
But they could use some youth at the cornerback position. And also at safety. I think that they need to be thinking about who's going to be Harrison Smith's successor? And how can they go ahead and bring somebody in while Hitman is still in the locker room so that they can kind of create that again?
You don't think Josh Metellus is that guy? You don't think Metellus can step into that role? I know he's a Swiss Army knife.
Well, I think they're two different players.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Right.
And they're built completely different. If they brought in somebody like, we were talking about this on our podcast that we have, our Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast, in case you guys didn't know, check it out on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. But Nick Emenwari, who's a safety out of South Carolina, is a monster.
Physically unbelievable.
6'3",
super fast,
230 pounds. He's mobile, he's aggressive, and I think Brian Flores would love that guy if he's available.
He is fast, he is strong. There's no question he's probably going in the first round. I think the Vikings are going to be a little bit hesitant to go safety again in the first round after, and I hate using this word lightly, after the Lewis Cine debacle.
Oh, yikes. Okay, well, but there were some other things that happened with the Lewis Cine.
That's true, and there's
you
no
have a
disrespect to
compound
Lewis Cine.
fracture across the pond.
It's true. And we love Lewis Cine. This is no disrespect. There's no shade to Lewis Cine. He just didn't necessarily live up to what the Vikings wanted him to be.
That draft class was not, I mean, nobody from that draft class was particularly
speedy. Jalen Naylor, was he in that draft class? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I think he might have been in that
This is the draft class right before I got to Minnesota.
I see.
So I walked into training camp and I was like, so these are the babies that are here. Okay.
Yeah. Man, I was so hyped when we got Lewis Cine. I was like, oh my God.
Well, and when I heard it too, because, you know, I went to Alabama. I've seen Lewis Cine play. He was phenomenal at Georgia. He was just all gas, no brakes.
Yeah. Another super fast guy.
Caught up to him. Will say Nick Emenwari is built a little bit different than Lewis Cine.
For sure,
He's a
bigger,
much bigger
stronger.
guy.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think wide receiver would be like the end of the line of positions that they would be looking at to draft right now.
You're saying they're not going to get Travis Hunter?
No, Travis Hunter will go.
You're saying they're not going to trade up for
Travis
Hunter.
Hunter's going to Jacksonville. I'm just kidding. I think Luther Burden.
Wow.
So here's the thing.
We got a guy who would love that in the newsroom.
We do. We have several guys in the newsroom that would love that. Luther Burden was projected to be the best player in college football this year. He did not have the offense around him to be that guy.
No, he did not.
But he could come into this Vikings offense and be phenomenal and be surrounded by some of the best receivers that there are in the league. That being said, he may not be available by the time they get to pick 24.
You think he's going before 24?
Potentially.
It'd be interesting.
I don't think he's going top 15, but I can see him going before 24. Yes. I think it's interesting, and I don't think it's necessarily his fault that he's dropped so far, but it's like nobody really knows. They saw him have this great junior year, and now they're just kind of like, he was so underutilized at Mizzou that people are kind of iffy on him right now. I will say Malachi Starks, if Nick Emenwari is not available.
There's one. See, I'd be happy with Starks.
Malachi Starks is another safety out of Georgia. And here's the thing. I'm going to toot my SEC horn here for a second. Because I covered Alabama, I've covered Georgia, I've covered LSU. These programs are built off of how NFL organizations work. So if you bring in guys from, I mean, look at the Eagles.
I was hoping you weren't going to say
I know,
the Eagles.
and it pains me to say it, but if you look at the Eagles, they have built a roster out of Bama and Georgia guys. And the transition can be very hard on these young men coming from college into the league. But when you pull them out of a program like Georgia that's already built like an NFL organization, the transition is a little bit easier. So I think that there's always an advantage when it comes to that. It's the same, I mean, and it's not just SEC per se. Oregon's very much the same. I mean, Texas is now SEC, so there's that. But I would be interested to see if there's not a top receiver, safety, lineman, cornerback available, I think they trade.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think they probably trade even if there is one of those guys available.
Yeah, potentially.
I think they're going to need some depth. I think, and like I said, I think the Vikings are built really well. I think they've done a great job in the offseason.
Yeah.
I think they need some younger guys. I don't think they're going to get value at that pick.
And they only have 66 guys on their roster right now. So they're missing, what is that math? 24?
Yeah, something like that.
So they need 24 more
Yeah.
people.
They have
and
some work
4
to do.
picks. Yeah,
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, there's definitely work to do. And Reggie will be there for a front row seat to all of it tomorrow.
The great Reggie Wilson.
Yeah, and I will also be out at TCO. I'll be at the Wild game first, and then
Go Wild.
I will be at TCO for our late night shows, hearing what Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi have to say on whatever decisions that they make
I
tomorrow
will be
night.
tuning in.
Okay.
I will be there.
Thanks,
I will be
Nasser.
watching.
I think he works.
Just
also,
like
so he
everybody
has to.
else who's watching this show will be tuning in to watch you there.
That's going to do it for our Care 11 Sports Plus show this week. Reggie will be back next week, I'm thinking. So thanks so much, Nasser, for filling in. And we will see you guys next Wednesday.